Hi, welcome to episode 13 of Talk About the Passion, a weekly podcast where I talk to creative folks about their journey to how they got where they are now, whether in music, writing, tattooing, filmmaking, anything really. I'm going to make this intro quick this week because I'm feeling a little under the weather. But when I first started thinking about doing this podcast and where I wanted to go with it, I made a list of about 50 people I'd love to talk to, and Mark McKay was right at the top of that list. And I've known Mark for a big chunk of my life, and, he's always been a smart and engaging person to talk to, and, if you know him, you definitely know that. He's knowledgeable and definitely enthusiastic about the music he's passionate about, so I definitely is a perfect guest for this podcast. Mark's probably best known for his time as a founding member of the Boston Straightedge hardcore band Slapshot, and for me, they reinvigorated the hardcore scene, and, they pretty much pioneered the second wave, I guess you'd call it, of straight edge bands, or at least were right there at the front, along with bands like Youth Today and Uniform Choice. We, of course, talk a bit about his time in Slapshot, but there's more to Mark than just Slapshot, so we go through quite a bit of stuff, and, of course, like almost every episode so far of this podcast, we talk about Kiss. So, yeah. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/TATP podcast. I just started an Instagram page, and I'm going to be putting pictures up, and some pictures that'll be related to this specific episode will be on there. So I would definitely check that out. And I'm on Twitter. My Twitter is TATP pod. And the Instagram is at TATP podcast. And of course, talkaboutthepassion.podbean.com is the main site where all the episodes sit. So, and if you or someone you know should be on the podcast, please don't hesitate to contact me at one of those places. And again, if you're listening on iTunes and have a second, why not give me a rating? I'd appreciate it, and appreciate the feedback, positive or negative. All right, I'll get out of your hair now, and let's start episode 13, and thanks for listening. All right, so welcome to Talk About the Passion. I'm here with my friend Mark McKay, who I've known for over 30 years now, I guess. Yeah. And thanks for coming out here and doing this. It's about 2 degrees here in Massachusetts today, so it's nice to have you here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So you did you grow up in Malden, Massachusetts?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, yeah. It was an interesting place to grow up. There was quite a bit of interesting characters around. So
yeah,
it was a good town though at the time.
And did you, to kill boredom, were you a music kid? So you started getting
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Music was the escape. It was the pretty much everything. Honestly,
yeah.
Bike riding and skateboarding and music.
Yeah. Did you have a person in your life that sort of opened you up to certain types of music or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. There was my older brother was probably my greatest teacher.
Yeah.
But we were pretty fortunate. We had right next door to us there was a house, and these 2 hippie guys lived there with their mom. I think she lived upstairs and they lived downstairs, or vice versa. And that was sort of a meeting place for all their kind of friends,
right.
Who turns out were probably like bikers or something. But they were always cool to the neighborhood kids.
Right.
They kept the cellar door open, so they were always playing records. So we'd go in there and hang out.
Yeah.
And nice folks.
Yeah.
So 1971, 72, 73, when I'm in first, second, third grade, over their house listening to Black Sabbath and Jethro Tull like that stuff that you kind of find I think, much later in life.
Yeah.
So I was like a little kid listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and just getting that education early. So
Right.
so that was really cool, and talk about a wild world to be in. Hanging out with these much older hippie guys who were being very cool,
Right.
and learning about all this great music.
Yeah. Is that where you heard about Rush? Is you a Rush guy?
Rush came a little bit later. Yeah, I
Yeah.
am definitely a Rush guy.
Yeah.
Rush came a little bit later. I was already kind of into a little bit later stuff. I think Van Halen and
Yeah.
Boston and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And my brother went to see Rush at the Opera House in Boston. This was probably 1978 or 79 or something.
Oh, wow. So like Hemispheres or...
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think it was Hemisphere's tour, as
Yeah.
a matter of fact. And we'd heard, 2112 and all that stuff, but didn't seem to be, a huge thing with me. It just kind of clicked after he came back and started telling me stories about the show and everything. I was like, wow, that sounds really cool. So
Yeah.
I started looking at him with different eyes, and that's,
Right.
I think it clicked with me at that point. So
that would be a tough record to get into for like your first Rush album too.
Yeah, I agree. Right.
So
but I think about them, it was like they represented something like when you listen to Black Sabbath or Aerosmith or something like that, you get a really kind of like bass heavy response. You know? When you listen to Rush, you're kind of in the cosmos. It's totally weird.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very Tolkien-esque, I guess. And
definitely.
That was I think why that was kind of a sea change for me too, is once you start listening to what they're saying and looking at the album covers going, this is really weird, but there's something infinitely cool about it.
Nice. Did you have any like life-changing records that you heard and then you kind of turned a corner?
Oh, many, yeah.
What were some of the first ones?
I was thinking about that on the way here because, I grabbed a bunch of CDs to listen to in the car on the way here, and I grabbed Pet Sounds, which was one of my life changers.
Yeah.
Springsteen, Born to Run was a total game changer for me, and I still listen to it probably once a week. It's one of those those things you just I can't stop listening to it.
Yeah.
Van Halen 2 for some reason.
Yeah,
really
I'm a big fan of Van Halen
was really a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And I think 2112 is another one.
Yeah.
I'm not even touching on the punk stuff at this point. It's just like the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Brain Salad Surgery was another one that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Blew my young mind.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I still listen to these to this day. So they obviously had some staying power.
Yeah, definitely. When you look, was Kiss also, because you're also a Kiss fan?
Oh, Kiss was. These other bands, I listened to them and I loved them and they were game changers and all that stuff. But Kiss was always in the stratosphere for me. No matter what you're listening to, or I always went back to Kiss.
Yeah.
So they were the mainstay, the constant. Since 1973 or 74, something like that,
I don't remember them being as divisive as they are now. I feel like nowadays people, and I think it's more because of like Gene Simmons's personality, but I feel like people either despise them or they're fans of Kiss,
Yeah, but, I mean, I haven't listened to a Kiss record that was made after probably 1979 since then, but they still hold me in their sway. They are what they are, and my youth was so entwined with Kiss and their aesthetic and their music. I mean, it's just
I think that's how that happens, because some stuff I just kind of left behind, but Kiss has always kind of stayed there, and they've been brought up in almost every episode of this podcast.
Oh, really? Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's great. I mean, I have a couple of Kiss stories. I wasn't a member of the Kiss Army.
Yeah.
I didn't see Kiss until reunion tour. I never caught them back in the day. I wasn't really quote unquote allowed to go to big concerts as a kid.
Right.
Though there was always music playing in my house, but a concert was kind of a
whole other
ballgame. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
when did punk rock start to happen for you?
I wish I could tell you. I remember my brother telling me about Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
When Nevermind the Bollocks came out in the U.S.
Yeah.
And citing some of the lyrics for me, and my reaction was like, "What? Like,
yeah.
What?
Right.
Why would you want to listen to something like that? You know?
Yeah.
It was sight unseen. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he cited was bodies, and
yeah.
I can't remember what else, but
right.
but we used to get like Musician magazine and Cream magazine because my brother's a musician.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, musician. They were out at Gloucester too, I think.
Oh, really?
I think
so.
I
didn't know that.
I think, yeah.
So we always had. There was always music playing in the house. There was always music publications in the house. So invariably, Cream would have like a spread on punk rock and have a picture of the Ramones in there or something. So you kind of you could see it before you could hear it. So,
right.
So we're reading about it. I'm going, these guys with the torn jeans, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But there were some gateway bands like. You know, Cheap Trick. You couldn't call them punk, but there was something completely different about them. Right, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
But what I really remember, there was I saw Rock and Roll High School.
Yeah.
And might have been a year after it came out or something, and just seeing the Ramones and hearing that that concert section that happens in there, and just going, I have no idea what this is, but this is unbelievable. So I went out the next day and I bought. This was probably 1980. I call it 1980 just because that's when the movie came out. So I went out and bought the 8-track soundtrack to it and played that thing until you know it broke.
Right.
So then you start to. There were some other bands on that soundtrack like Devo. And maybe Talking Heads or something. Yeah. So you're like, what is this? This is something completely different.
Yeah.
So. So I'm going to call it 1980 for the sake of convenience.
Yeah. And then, so there's a picture of you on that you've put up on Facebook of you with Joe Strummer.
Oh.
And so how old were you when that was taken?
I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
That was taken at the Orpheum Theater.
Yeah.
On the Combat Rock Tour in 1983.
Yeah. September
of 1983. And I remember it so well because I wrote in Sharpie on all the Polaroids we took with the date and you know, that was one of those moments that tested me because, you know, punk rock at that point I was fully entrenched in punk rock and discovering hardcore and stuff. Yeah. And it was all about no heroes and, you know, smashing down all these barriers between the bands and all this stuff. And and I'm like, wow, I'm standing here with my arm around Joe Strummer. It feels pretty darn good, you know, like this guy's like a hero, you know. And they were very gracious and very cool. But you know, it's kind of surreal, honestly. I mean, that's Joe Strummer, the guy who made all this music that was the soundtrack of my high school years, you know.
Yeah, that was my question. Was like, was he as important to you at that point in your life?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
They there was this kid I went to high school with. His name was Freddie. Yeah, and I went to a Catholic high school for my first year, 1979 to 1980, and we had to wear like suit jackets and stuff. So he, on his suit jacket, he had an armband that said Chaos. Yeah, in the middle of this Catholic school. So, you know, we saw him and went, I wonder what this is about. You know, so it turns out, you know, he was emulating Mick Jones. From 1976 or whatever. So, so we became kind of fast friends, and he kind of squeaked out a lot of great records and knowledge to us. I forget where I was going with that, but he was another pivotal point. Oh, the Clash thing, they finally came around on tour that I was able to go. Right. And my folks said, yeah, sure, you can go. It's at Cape Cod, whatever, you know, go with your friends. And he had met them, I think, at Bonds. Yeah. Because he just blew off school and just went to Bonds to see the Clash for 7 nights or whatever. Yeah. So we met him after the show, and he said, "Oh, I met these guys. They are traveling with the Clash as caterers, and they said if we want to come to the shows in Boston, they'd get us in." Yeah. So we were like, "Wow, that's awesome!" So sure enough, we go to the shows in Boston. We say, "Yeah, we're here to work with the caterers." So we get these backstage passes and go in and meet the caterers, and they're like, "Oh, great, thanks for coming. Right. So here's what we want you to do. You peel all these potatoes and peel these carrots." And so we're in the bowels of the Orpheum Theater peeling potatoes and stuff for the Clash. Yeah. And then, after the dinner was done, they said, "Oh, go enjoy the show and come back and help us clean up." So 2 nights in a row, we got into these sold out shows, backstage passes.
Wow.
And we snuck a Polaroid camera and a bunch of film and some records in to get signed and stuff.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So that was your first live show, too?
No, my first live show was actually the Bay City Rollers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I saw the Bay City Rollers and Sean Cassidy and Andy Gibb.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, at the Garden.
Yeah, yeah.
But my first rock show as a adult, that my parents let me go to, was Rush
nice.
at Boston Garden for Permanent Waves.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Nice. That Clash show, who opened those shows? Wasn't there a weird opener for?
At Cape Cod, there was a very strange band called Pulse Allama that opened.
Okay.
And I guess, Joe Strummer was dating somebody that was in the band, so they came along. And they were this really weird kind of like tribal, hard to explain.
Yeah.
You just look it up if you're interested. Pulse Allama.
Okay.
Not very good.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know who opened the Boston shows. I could probably find out. I just never thought to because we were busy peeling potatoes for the Clash, so I didn't get to see the opener.
Yeah. So then hardcore sort of started to sneak into your life a little then?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Rocket Records.
Yeah.
Where we had been going for years. Kind of these probably monthly pilgrimages up there because only one guy had a car, so we had to make sure we could get up there. And I was in there one day, and there was these 2 guys, and they were standing at the counter, and this music was just blasting. Blasting, and it was furious and it was chaotic, the music, and so we're shopping around and kind of looking at the speakers, going, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah,
and sure enough, it was Al and Jamie, who were at Rocket Records. Al and Jamie from SSD, at Rocket Records, selling copies of The Kids Will Have Their Say to the store.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, we went up and I asked them because it was very interesting. I said, "Hey, what is this you're playing?" And these guys said, "Oh, this is our band." So, so I think I bought a copy there for like $4 that day or something. So, just took it home and was just like, "This is just out of control."
Yeah. Yeah.
Similar thing happened. I went into Newbury Comics, Newbury Street.
Yeah.
And they were playing This Is Boston, Not L.A.
Oh yeah.
So we stayed there to hear the whole thing and heard all these different hardcore bands. So bought that immediately for like $3.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was it. We just started looking for anything that was of that ilk, that genre that we could get our hands on. And the stuff was plentiful, and it was it was always there.
Now, were you identifying with straight edge at that point? I mean, I knew that was kind of like a new thing but were you already just not into like drinking and drugs anyway at that point? And then so that was kind of a happy accident, I would think.
It was. Well, we stopped. We used to find beers in the local parks and things like that and drink them.
Yeah.
We just decided that was just not a good idea.
Right.
It didn't feel good to be drunk. It didn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So I hadn't had a drink at that point since I was like 16 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I finally heard Minor Threat, Straight Edge,
I
was like, "You've got to be kidding me! There's a name for this, you know, and it's attached
right.
to this unbelievable music that I love."
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that at that particular moment, which would have been my senior year of high school, probably 82, 83, that I just decided that was me. I was a straight edge guy, and that's the way it was.
Yeah, and I think that worked good in high school, because I think high school in the 80s there was a culture of like drinking, and I was never fully straight edge, but through high school I never drank, and I always just kind of thought it was like a jock's thing, and just, and then when I was a senior in high school, Chris Jones, who was the drummer for Straw Dogs, was killed in a drunk driving accident, and so that world was just, so I think that fit in perfect for people that just weren't into it, and it was definitely a good other choice.
Yeah.
That wasn't even to this day, when I try to explain it to people that aren't in this world, in the hardcore world, I mean, they don't necessarily understand it, where it's coming from.
Yeah, we had this group of kids. I mean, the high school that I went to was pretty big.
Yeah.
And there were tons of kids there who we called burnouts, and they were the kids that smoked pot and drank and partied and all that stuff.
Right.
And we see them shuffling around the halls with untied work boots and just that kind of stuff, and going, these kids are going nowhere, man. You know, so we just thought that we drew the parallel, however incorrectly or correctly, I don't know.
Yeah.
That it was due to partying that these kids were bound for nowhere. So we wanted to make a difference and have short hair and make noise. So
and then the music was. All those bands had a message, and for like a teenager, that was awesome to like, especially like when 7 Seconds came along and stuff like that. But
it was interesting. Like I had gotten all the Black Sabbaths out of my system as a kid, so I was looking for some type of music that had, the same kind of excitement for me, and and it seemed like this punk and hardcore thing actually, some of it had a message that was good.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than that devil worship heavy metal stuff.
Do you remember what the first show you saw that you like sort of blew you away?
They used to do a lot of early matinees at the Channel in Boston, and we would see bands like Mission of Burma. Yeah. And Richie Parsons, his various bands, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So Mission of Burma was a real early kind of mind blow for me. Yeah. I was listening to them on the way here too. Yeah. Another kind of game changer for me.
Oh, definitely.
Show wise, there's a lot. I mean, there was that 1982-83 stretch at the Channel where every Sunday there was a matinee. So. You saw Circle Jerks and DOA and the Misfits and, all that stuff. There were a lot of Ramones shows that I went to that really blew my mind too. And those guys, for all their, I guess, internal strife, were super cool. I got to meet them a couple times. Nice. And they were super cool, really into the fans. Yeah. And not just kind of talking about it. I mean, after a show at like Salem State College, they invited me and my friend Richard after the show to go over to the radio station with them. So, So, it was almost like a movie playing. I'm walking down the street in Salem State, like after the gig, to go over to the radio station with the Ramones. I could hear this soundtrack playing in my mind. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. But it wasn't that hero worship kind of thing. Because I'm like, I'm just talking to Dee Ramone.
Guys. That's what I think the hardcore scene brought too, because even now when I think of sort of the big names in hardcore, Ian McKay or Henry Rollins or Keith Morris or whatever, I put them in the same world as Paul Stanley and Geddy Lee and same with the artists like Brian Walsby and the guy that did all the Iron Maiden albums. They're
good point. Yeah,
like for me anyway, they're like but they're approachable people, and that's the difference. And you could go up to maybe not Henry Rollins, but I met him a few times off and on, and some days he was nice to you, and some days he was kind of blow you off.
I was just chatting with a friend today about Henry Rollins. She's going to see him speak tonight.
Yeah.
And I was recalling a situation where I did approach Henry at the Channel just to say, hey, thinking like, oh, here's Henry Rollins sitting alone, singing from Black Flag. So I sat down next to him and started chatting. Yeah. And he just looked at me with this kind of vacant thing and just said, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, okay, man, see you later.
Yeah, he did the same thing to me. He was in the 90s. The Rollins band was playing in Lupo's, and Iggy Pop was playing there, I think, the next night or something. Mm-hmm. And I had read his book, so I was like, oh, I know he loves Iggy Pop. I should tell him that Iggy Pop is... For whatever reason, in my 20s, I thought that was so... This was right before they're going on stage. He's standing sort of alone in the shorts. Definitely at that point where, like, he's probably in his, like, don't fucking
in
talk
the
to
zone.
Me. Yeah, right? And I went up to him and I said, hey, man, where are you guys playing tomorrow night? And he goes, I don't know. I was like, yeah, I guess
okay, whatever.
And then I kind of learned if he does his spoken word stuff, he's approachable after those. But the music ones, he was always like, you had to get in the zone or whatever.
Well, he certainly was an intense performer.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, and I definitely understand, having performed as well. Yeah. You kind of have to get in a mindset. And my having to get in that mindset was like, am I going to remember these songs?
Yeah,
is somebody going to jump on my drums or something? Is some mayhem going to happen?
Yeah, yeah.
But it wasn't. I never tried to be unapproachable. You know?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
just be honest and say, hey, man, look,
Yeah,
I can't talk right now. I'm freaking out, you know? I was always really nervous before I performed, too.
Yeah,
so
yeah, definitely.
It was important to kind of get in that zone. So.
No, I think that's with any performer on any level is like that.
Right. You want to do a good show.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So you started playing music as a teenager. Was terminally ill.
Yeah.
Your first band, or
kind of. I never really did any. Terminally was like, it was a band, of course. They recorded a couple of demos, and that was, but it was more like a collective of just
friends,
us high school kids and friends that just hung out.
Yeah.
And by the time the drummer left, I didn't know how to play drums, so I tried to play drums, and it was just a disaster. So I just helped them book some shows and things like that.
Yeah.
And then they fell apart, but we all kept in touch. It just didn't seem like it was the thing to do anymore.
Yeah.
So I think just for convenience sake, I was in terminally ill, but it's not. But
it wasn't
like I never played a note with them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't think they didn't play many shows, right?
No, not a lot. But there was a couple. The one kind of big show they did play was the one that those guys booked in Malden at that.
That famous
Eagles Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good show.
So Slapshot ended up coming along at a point.
Yeah.
I think in hardcore where a lot of people were getting disillusioned and going different directions. There was a lot of metal and sort of hard rock happening in Boston, and some of it was bad.
Yeah.
But some of it was great. I like, for me anyway, personally, the FUs have sort of stood the test of time with out of all those bands, and I love all those bands and everything they were doing. But yeah, the scene at that point kind of seemed to just lose its direction and that power of the early hardcore. So Slapshot came along.
Yeah, I mean, back on the map, it was kind of our clarion call to everybody, but it was also our internal. It was telling you how frustrated we were with what was going on in Boston as well.
Yeah.
Slapshot again was kind of a, on one hand, was kind of a collective of friends too.
Yeah.
But it was very focused. When we had our first rehearsal, Choke had like 3 songs written.
Nice.
I think it might have been leftover stuff after Last Rites or whatever.
Yeah.
But we got together and we were like, oh, we can't really play our instruments, but this sounds all right, because it's, it's just kind of thug rock,
Yeah. I think you had told me Back on the Map was literally the first song you ever learned how to play on drums. Is it?
Oh yeah,
true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I learned how to play during Slapshot rehearsals.
Yeah,
because I bought the drums. Steve Verstein and I were hanging out all the time, and he said, "Oh, you should play drums so we can get a band together." So I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So we literally went to a music store, bought drums, and
nice.
We started jamming with this guy who lived in Canton, and he wanted to kind of do like a surf punky kind of thing.
Okay.
And I couldn't play.
Yeah,
I just literally couldn't play.
Yeah.
And that stuff is all upbeat and fast.
Tough. Yeah.
So we bailed out of that, and there's just nothing going on. So Choke and Steve had been meeting at a supermarket.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's factually true. They would meet late nights. Right.
Yeah.
So Steve said, "Let's, Choke wants to get a band together," and I was like, "Oh, awesome! Okay, let's do this." No, he's really a nice guy. He's really a nice guy. He kept telling me so. The rest is just kind of how it happened. We got together at a rehearsal spot. 3 of us. We didn't have a bass player at the time.
Yeah,
and just started putting stuff together.
Yeah, and I remember Gitter saying at the time saying Slapshot was the best live band going or something like that. And I remember thinking, did they play that? I thought they had that show at Lupo's coming up. And
yeah, right, exactly. Our first show.
Yeah.
Mike was good like that.
Yeah, he was a good promoter.
Yeah.
I feel like I can almost hear his voice in the background vocals on. Because does he sing backups in that?
No.
Oh, he doesn't.
No.
I thought he did.
Back on the Map. I think the only person who did extra stuff was probably Hank.
Yeah. Okay. That was outside of the band.
I was super nervous about recording because that was the first time I had ever recorded. I
Yeah,
think we
yeah.
had played one show at that point, or
Right,
maybe
right.
maybe 2 shows at that point.
Yeah.
So I was very nervous, and there's lots of flubs on the record and things like that from that I did.
Right.
So it's kind of it's interesting to hear people say that they really enjoy the record because I hear it. And I go,
You hear the stuff
oh God,
that nobody else hears.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. But we kept it really tight. We recorded really late one weekend. We had hours that ran from like midnight till 8 in the morning because it was cheaper at the recording studio. So, but we banged it out in a weekend and then mixed the next weekend or something.
Yeah. And when you kind of talked a little about this in the new book that came out, the Straightedge book. About when you had first got together or heard Steve wanted to get this band together, you had only kind of known Choke from Last Rites, and he was kind of a scary guy at that point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And, so how was that first meeting? Were you nervous?
Oh, it was super tense.
Tense, yeah.
Yeah, it was super tense. I wasn't nervous.
Yeah.
I was a little bit more hesitant to kind of bother. Yeah. Because he was such a what I thought to be a caustic figure in the scene, really divisive and that kind of stuff. And that's not fair because I didn't know the guy.
You didn't actually know him.
I didn't know the guy, and a dear friend of mine was dating him at the time, so I was like, "There's got to be something with this guy."
Yeah.
But he gave me the business the first time we met. He glared at me from across the room and asked to see my license because he didn't believe my last name was McKay. He thought I was pulling some like Ian McKay kind of thing, so so he was just being a general menace. But
right.
A couple meetings after that, and we were pretty tight.
Yeah, and on stage, I mean, you guys were one of the tightest. At that, like when you first started, I was like, "Oh, they really are one of the best live bands."
Wow, thank you.
I thought it was, so it's. And
that's really interesting to me, honestly. Yeah. I think we really tried really hard to be a good rock band.
Yeah.
But the talent level of myself was nowhere near what it should have been to be performing on that level. But I don't know. Thank you.
I think for me too, because I sort of missed the boat by like a year on a lot of that early Boston hardcore anyway. And I had just kind of heard of Choke, and we were kind of talking a little about before that's all I knew about him was the cover of that Last Rites 45 where he has no shirt on and the beard. And
we saw that show. That was taken at
only one show they did.
Yeah,
right?
that one show at the Greenfield Grange.
Yeah.
And we drove out there to see DYS because DYS was at least on stage accepting, positive, all that stuff. And Last Rites were playing, and no one could go on the floor. He's swinging this mic stand into the crowd. The only person who was near the stage was Jamie.
Yeah.
And they're playing this music, and I'm like, this music is so good.
Yeah.
But he's such a dick. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I really want to love this band.
Yeah.
But look at what he's doing, you know?
Yeah. and then the hockey stick happened, and
the hockey stick we thought was really funny because with the mic stand, it was like, hey, we should have a hockey stick because we're Slapshot. Oh, that's so
that was calculated. Okay,
it was very calculated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the first show that I saw you play was the Dag Nasty one at the Rat that I think Embrace was supposed to play.
Yep.
And they broke up and I was so pissed because I was like, I'm finally going to see Ian live, and then that was it.
Right. You want it's Ian McKay, and you want to see what
faith.
he's going to do. Right. You
Yeah.
want to see what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Because everything has this air of quality, and it's just plain awesome.
Yeah.
So we were looking forward to it as well.
Yeah. Who ended up taking their place? I don't remember.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody. I don't know.
Or the Wrecking Crew, maybe. Or I don't even
Wrecking
know.
Crew, Psycho. Who knows?
Psycho.
Could have been anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. And then, so you guys started touring.
Yeah.
Around, and how was that? Did you?
Oh, it was good. I mean, Back on the Map got some distance, some physical distance across the country. So we, we started kind of going out to like Albany and Rochester, and didn't really spend too much time going down the south. We actually just, we were, proximity to our jobs and our families and stuff kind of kept us, within a short striking distance. But we eventually went cross country I think it was probably 87 the first time we went cross country.
Yeah.
And we played 3 shows.
Yeah.
And, everything else kind of fell apart as we were going.
Yeah.
But, we made it to California, and the record had been over there, and the response was great. We had some really great kids over there. So,
nice.
So we felt like we had, kind of stitched together something that was okay.
Yeah. And was there a reputation with, because Slapshot was a Boston band and they kind of took Straightedge to like more of an extreme
absolutely.
edge, was so, I imagine people were kind of on the defensive in some places you played, thinking, who do these guys think they are? And did you experience much of that?
Not so much of stuff like that, but it was more like the backlash, like the vegan and vegetarian backlash that started to get us.
Yeah.
Because once kids started saying, well, Slapshot's not true straight edge because you guys eat meat. We know you do. We've seen pictures and stuff like that. You talk about it. Right. So we were like, what does that have to do with anything? Right. So we started really pushing buttons and saying, Boston Mass, where the meat is, men are men and the meat is red. Yeah, right, exactly. Stuff like that to push buttons.
Yeah.
And, we had somebody throw tofu at us one night and just, stupid stuff like that.
I think someone threw change at Uniform Change at one of their
Uniform
shows.
Choice. Oh, absolutely. Many shows I've actually seen them. And people have been doing that, throwing change at them. And I thought that was really kind of cool, actually, because you can make a couple extra bucks.
Yeah, I know, right?
They must. Nothing wrong with that. Like, we got to make a money song now, too,
And there was some stuff in that Straightedge book, too, talking about people throwing meat. So there was like a little rift between like Youth of Today and Slapshot, which didn't seem real to me, but so that actually existed.
It was, it was very real. Yeah. When those guys came across, I can't remember the first time I saw them, but I probably heard about them from the guys from Newport. Yeah. And 7 Seconds, I think, Kevin put out their first EP or something like that too. So, we felt like we were kind of contemporaries, anyways. Right. Because we had mutual friends, and they were playing straight edge hardcore. So, so we hit it off real good and real quick. And I don't know if we ever played with Youth of Today, but certainly we had played with bands that were friends of theirs and had met them and stuff and hung out. So So then there was that kind of schism that's talked about in the Straight Edge book, and I was a little disappointed that was such a focal point in the book. Right. Yeah, it's almost takes up the whole chapter. Yeah, Slapshot, and I'm like, I think there's much more to them than this little, because I hadn't really heard about it until I read that in the book. I'd kind of heard, and I just always kind of put it to the same as like the early Boston New York rivalry. And so I just was like, it's probably just some overblown thing. No, it was very real, and it was very but to choke, it was an affront, you know what I mean? Right. But to me, it was kind of like, wow, these guys were really cool. They were our friends, and so we finally made it to CBGBs to play with these guys. Oh yeah, we did play with them at CBGBs. That's where the whole thing started. Yeah. So we finally got there and played, and then there was this whole rift that came up, and we were just like, wow, that's totally wrong. Right, that's not what this is about. So, yeah. I had told my friend Kevin that I was going to open this interview by, I said, should I ask Mark how Youth of Today ripped Jack off and why he hates Bold so much? And he said you should, but I was like, no, I'll wait till we get to that part. But see, that's just another instance of Slapshot pushing it, as far as we could possibly push it, and then pushing it a little bit farther. So, where did that voicemail show up? Oh, I always thought it was maybe on the Tang. It might have been Tang. Yeah, it might have been Tang, or I want to think Gitter, but it was most likely Tang. Yeah. Nice. And but so years later, you kind of look back at that stuff and realize how petty it is, because those guys are all great, like the Youth of Today guys. Oh, absolutely. Sure, and then Crippled Youth, I remember seeing them the first time they came here, and they just reminded me, almost gave me the same feeling you guys did. It was old school hardcore that was, what I wanted to hear. And they were like 12 years old, or however old they were. And I'd like to think that we had something to do with some of these bands kind of saying, well, we can do this too, and It doesn't have to be, you know, so. What am I trying to say? I just, we were very happy that there was this proliferation of hardcore, this new, much younger kids who were doing it. Because when Terminally Ill was doing it, we were younger kids too. We were 17 years old too. So to see the youngsters coming up and just really tearing it up was refreshing. So.
Yeah. And you sort of began a friendship with Kevin Seconds because they're one of my favorite bands of all time. And when I first heard them, I was like, this is like the quintessential hardcore band. This is like everything I want, lyrically, musically, melodically. And I don't think I had ever met him until years later. Maybe when they played Alston a few years ago, I met him briefly. But and he's still making amazing music. So
it's strange you should mention him. I watched last night. I couldn't sleep. I was just goofing around the internet, and a thing came up on Facebook. Kevin Seconds is playing live.
Oh yeah.
So his new band, Unsteady Heights.
Yeah.
They broadcast their first gig last night on Facebook. So I got to spend an hour listening to Kevin Seconds. So
yeah.
But he was one of those guys that when they came around for the first time, you know, I was slightly intimidated.
Yeah.
But I was going to speak to him, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just went up and said, hey, man, thanks for coming. It was just, you know, because they were, after Minor Threat, it was 7 seconds for me.
Right.
Because they were just continuing on in that vein, but
yeah.
more like I felt. More positive, more, you know, inclusionary, and the music was just furious. So
they were touching on like racism and sexism and stuff, and not many people had touched on sexism yet, I don't think, at that point.
Correct.
In that big of a way.
Yep.
So.
And then the last song on that album, Trust, you know, which is talking about, you know, what it's like to, you know, to have that relationship with somebody that's so deep. It's just like, wow, this isn't screaming at a wall. This is talking about, you know, the human condition. So
that may have been one of the early sort of emo-y type things.
Right,
there was that.
But again, the music's furious. So you hear this, you know, this really worthy message coming out of something that's blowing your mind. It was just really cool.
And so during Slapshot, that's sort of when we met, and you were working at Newbury Comics at the time, and right?
Well, my question for you is, you don't get to ask all the questions. I get to ask a question too.
All right.
I don't remember meeting you.
Yeah, I don't either.
We just always kind of knew each other, you know? So I was wondering if you remember.
I don't remember an actual time, but I just remember going into Newbury Comics, and you were in there. Mm-hmm. And you were the most, like, I knew you from Slapshot, and you were definitely the most approachable, because I didn't, you know, Choke was the scary guy. And Steve Ristine, I think, still gets the award for the person in the world who's probably kicked me in the head the most times in my life.
Absolutely.
Because he was always on top of the crowd.
His signature move.
Yeah. And then Anastas I didn't know, or Jamie I didn't really know, and Chris I didn't know. But you were the most approachable guy, and I think I would go into Newbury Comics and you'd kind of recommend me music. Yeah. We would just talk about music or whatever. So, but I think that went on for years with like people I still know now, like our mutual friend Nicole Jakewith. She was a Newbury Comics person. I would go in and just talk about music, and that's sort of when I learned that, because at that point in my life as a teenager, I always assumed like someone's into metal, they're a metal guy, and that's it. And this guy's into hardcore. But you know, introduced me to some stuff like 4AD, Cocteau Twins, and so you were kind of big into a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah,
and,
you know, I couldn't live by hardcore. I grew up with such a diverse musical palette. You know, like we had music playing in the house all the time. My folks listening to Motown and Tom Jones and, you know, doo-wop and things like that. So there was all kinds of music. So to limit yourself, you know, it's like I listened to hardcore most of the time.
Yeah.
But there was so much other stuff. And that 4AD stuff really resonated with me because it was the opposite. Sometimes you couldn't even understand what they were saying. And it didn't matter. You were looking for that kind of oral experience rather than that being punched in the face experience.
Yeah, definitely. So, one of my things I always did when I would leave for a long time in the 90s, it was starting to go to a lot more metal type shows. It was a lot of those sort of stoner, doom, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. When I would leave, my ritual was to play Dead Can Dance for the drive home, because it would just put me in like a better
awesome.
space to just kind of, or the Cocteau Twins. Yep. But it was usually Dead Can Dance because you just needed to kind of unwind after being assaulted. And
Cocteau Twins took you to like this kind of ethereal, weird place. Dead Can Dance almost was. It took you to another time.
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
You know?
Definitely,
the way that music sounded,
yeah.
It was like, is this music from Italian Renaissance?
Right,
or,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was really, yeah.
But I think that was part of their appeal for me, too.
Yeah,
It was just you never knew what you were going to get with Dead Can Dance. But it was always great.
Yeah. And then reggae. And I just thought of this when you mentioned you were getting CDs on the way here.
Yeah.
I remember you had a picture you put on social media years ago with 2 CD cases, and one said reggae and one said not reggae.
Oh,
do those still exist?
No.
So.
I don't know where those ended up.
Yeah.
I may have forgotten to take them out of a car that went to the wrecker.
Yeah.
Stupidly.
That's
but at that particular point, I was listening to almost strictly reggae.
Yeah. I was that always. I didn't think it was strange, but I would just remember thinking, Mark's in this, straight edge band, and he loves reggae, which is...
Well, the very first Slapshot show, I had this Mikey Dread T-shirt, and I wore that performing to the first show.
Yeah.
It was kind of my way of saying to myself, okay, I'm in this mayhem situation, but reggae to me kind of represents like... it's almost like grounding, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was on the way here today. I was listening to Mission of Burma.
Yeah.
I listened to Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
I listened to a King Tubby CD, a Roots Radix dub CD that was just, and that was that really, I don't know. It's like the tires on the road reggae for me for some reason. Okay. So, and I still listen to reggae constantly.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where when I discovered The Clash, I heard Police and Thieves, and then I heard Pressure Drop, and I was like, those are great songs, but what is that rhythm,
Yeah, yeah.
And then when Bank Robber came out on that 10-inch, right, exactly. I knew that was something I had to investigate. Nice. So I'm one of the myriad of people who found reggae through The Clash.
Really. I think I might have as well. And they're one of the exceptions when people say white people shouldn't play reggae. I always say, well, The Clash did some reggae. I kind of get what they're talking about. There is a certain aesthetic of the white people that shouldn't be playing
right,
reggae,
but they chose so wisely. They chose like Police and Thieves.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about a universal theme.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, for what they were seeing.
Yeah,
and you hear the stories about the Clash. Oh well, we lived in this area where there was the Notting Hill Carnival and there was all this mayhem going on. Right, so they were kind of living it.
Yeah. And who are some of your favorite reggae artists?
Well, I was listening to Jacob Miller on the way here, too. I listen to a lot of CDs on the way here. I was listening to Jacob Miller, Augustus Pablo, King Tubby.
Yeah.
I do tend to gravitate a little bit more towards the dub side of things.
Yeah.
But Don Carlos was one that I liked really early, really a lot.
Yeah.
Gregory Isaacs,
Yeah.
I mean, the names are... sort of they signify reggae, those things. But those are the ones that really stuck with me.
Did you get to see the Bad Brains early on?
I did. I saw the Bad Brains in it was 1980, late in 82, 83 maybe.
Yeah. I'm jumping around.
Yeah, they were well, the show that I saw was not a great indicator because they were 8 hours late to the show.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard about that show. Yeah.
So they came out and they didn't start playing super aggressive music to start off the set.
Yeah.
And then I had to leave.
Right.
So when I finally did see them after that, it was for it was like 86 or something like that.
Oh, when you guys played with them maybe? Or?
Well, we played with HR. Yeah. That first show was with HR. Yeah. And that was cool, but it was, HR was kind of funky.
Yeah.
But then we saw Bad Brains it was like, what was the first album they did when they kind of came? Was it Rock for
Light? And then, because one of my most memorable channel shows was you guys with Jerry's Kids and them. And that I think that was Eye Against Eye era.
Eye Against Eye, right, exactly. Yep.
And they were great. They were amazing. And I'm glad I didn't get to see that because anytime I saw them after that, which was maybe 2 or 3 times, they just weren't very good.
Yeah.
So I was glad I got to see that.
Yeah. But I didn't see I didn't see Bad Brains at Streets or anything like that where they just blew everybody's brains out.
Those are
but I guess for all intents and purposes, I did see the Bad Brains early, but wasn't a fantastic experience.
I'm jumping around a little here. But, so Slapshot, you ended up. How many records did you play on with them?
Oh, I don't know. 5 or 6, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then, the Stars and Stripes, too.
Yeah. You know, friends of mine in Danvers at one point found a box of Stars and Stripes albums behind like a random building.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know where or how that happened.
Danvers,
but it was around the time when Al Quint had a CD store down there with the guy from Boston. Remember that? Him and Sebastian.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he owned a record store.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Al does not like to tell that story. He sort of had a bad falling out. But he's publicly talked about it a lot. So. Yeah. But it was around that. So I don't know if it has anything to do with it because it was on the same street as that. But isn't that weird?
It's very strange. Stars and Stripes was a whole other scenario, and I totally understand why somebody would throw a box of those out. I certainly enjoyed it. But sometimes an inside joke doesn't translate well on the outside.
And that went on. They did a couple of records. And
I played on 2 with them, and I think they did a third, and maybe a fourth. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And then at one point you just stopped being in Slapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was taking a toll on me.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally.
Yeah.
Spiritually, it really was. It sucked the life out of me.
Yeah.
And early on too. Like we were feeling the pinch in 1989.
Yeah.
It was just. It was too much.
Yeah.
But we kept on.
Yeah.
And, it started affecting my my home life, my family, my sanity, So I just had to get out.
Yeah.
It was tough, though, because I went back a couple times.
Yeah. No, I watched, one of my favorite inventions now is YouTube on the TV. So I watched, there was a Slapshot show from one of the Philly, This Is Hardcore Fest that you were playing drums on.
Oh my gosh, is that on there?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, I'd love to watch that.
Really good quality video, too.
Oh, wow.
That was really good. So it was you and Craig, I guess, was on that. And would Craig have been on that lineup?
I don't think so. I think that, you know what? I'm drawing a blank, honestly.
Yeah.
But that was such a fantastic show because there was like a sea of kids around you. You're playing like in the middle of kids. And
yeah.
Oh, I'd love to check that out. Thank you for reminding me about that. I'm going to write that
down. Yeah. Anytime I see footage from those festivals, it reminds me of like the cover of the Youth of Today album. I'm in the crowd somewhere. You can kind of see part of my head in that shot. So we're both on the cover of that album.
Awesome.
But yeah, it reminds me of that era of hardcore when there'd be, sometimes I would imagine as a performer, it'd be kind of annoying to have like a lot of people on stage, but maybe if you're as a drummer, because you're sitting there, but
I've had the drums knocked over, I've had people smash into me and that kind of stuff. But I think that was like we were talking about kind of prepping for a show.
Yeah.
You have to get in the zone and say, shit is going to go down.
Right.
There's going to be stuff that's going to get broken.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen. So you got to be prepared for it. And again, we weren't making high art as far as I was concerned. So if something happens, the drums get broken or something, well, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. It's all for the.
Yeah.
It was about the kids.
And they're still playing. I think the record they put out last year, I think it was great. Or a few years ago, the self-titled one.
Yep.
Was great. I think Craig has put some fuel under them again. And,
absolutely.
writing some good stuff. So
no, I'm happy that they're still going.
Yeah.
I filled in a couple times. They had a drum seat that was vacant a couple times.
Yeah.
So I filled in a couple times, but physically I couldn't do it so much anymore. It was really I injured my arm fairly early on, and never really kind of got better. So so it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
But it's always great to see them and to perform them is always a blast.
Yeah.
But I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so it's cool to see that they're still out there. And then I ran into you at the Triple X fanzine.
Yeah.
Released this great book recently that Chris and Gitter did a really cool job on. And there was that show a few weeks ago, Kevin Seconds and the Proletariat.
Yep.
So it's just cool to see these lifelong friendships that have like formed and from music.
Yep.
And I think people that aren't, I don't know, that don't have this opportunity to get into like a scene like this, it's I don't feel bad for them, but I feel like we experience something like really special, and it's
you're absolutely right.
It's
that's what it was for me. Was that experience and meeting people, and I think every Slapshot interview I ever did, I managed to get in there. Well, it's not about the music; it's about traveling, and it's about meeting people and making those friendships.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Seconds, you know what I mean? Just to bring up that example you were talking about, he's one of those guys that, God, he's the nicest guy, and he's so giving of his time and his talent.
Yeah.
And he just started a new band. I mean, it's just like, he does it because he loves it.
Yeah. You can definitely see that in him.
Right.
Like he does the artwork, and he's always been out there. So it's cool to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you for creativity outlets at this point, you've started doing this thing maybe a couple years ago called McKay Story a Day, where you write these stories, and it's great. I think it's great.
Thanks.
So how did you sort of start that?
March of 2016, I saw somebody posted that it was National Poetry Month.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm not really into poetry per se, but, I had done a little bit of writing and kind of goofing around there. So I thought, it would be funny to write a story every day for National Poetry Month. So I said, well, I'm not a poet, but here's a story.
Yeah.
So it actually went on for like three months.
Yeah.
I just kept going because it was fun. The response was good, and I felt like I was creating something again.
Yeah.
So then I decided that I was going to try in 2017 to do an entire year where I would write a story every day.
Yeah.
So I started, I'm a week into it, and I'm writing these stories. They're a couple paragraphs long, and I'm going, oh my God, this is impossible. I can't keep up. My brain's not that good. I can't keep up with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they got a little bit shorter, and then I started making things that were a little bit more poetic, quote unquote, So I actually just finished up the entire year of doing a story / poem / word salad for the entire year. So getting ready to actually publish that now, self-publish that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember you were kind of talking about, you were making some sort of hints at publishing something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
And then I have another thing. This is going to be the year of publishing for me because I'm having such a good time with this particular outlet.
Yeah.
I did a kind of an artistic fanzine, quote unquote. God, I wish you could see the red in my face rather than hear what I'm saying because it sounds so stupid, pretentious. But I did this kind of artistic, goofy fanzine in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And I just finally got my hands on all copies of that and
nice.
Just wrote a, I guess, explanation / apology around it. So I'm gonna be self-publishing that
nice.
This year as well.
Oh,
so.
Excellent.
And a couple other things. I'm having a good time writing this year.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you read quite a bit. That's one of your passions.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
When we were talking about this and when I started listening to other people's podcasts, I was like, wow, okay, that's such a great question. Like, what am I passionate about?
Right.
And I haven't felt really passionate about too much, kind of other than my family, which is the thing that you focus on primarily.
Right.
But my kids are getting older, and I'm wanting to kind of get out there and mix it up a little bit again. Yeah. So one of my passions is reading.
Yeah.
Which is something I got from my kids.
Yeah. Nice.
I wasn't like a free reader. You know, just when things came across, music biographies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But my kids started, I would see my kids, and they've read since day one.
Nice.
We just always read to them, and they always free read.
Yeah.
So I started picking up books and
Yeah.
and reading, going, wow, these kids are onto something, you know. So probably for the past 3-4 years, I've been, you know, reading probably around 75 books a year or something like that. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's been unbelievably rewarding. I found things that I never would have come across. Like one of my favorites, like Russian authors, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and Turgenev, and you know, after you're reading these books, whether they're 1,000 pages or 100 pages, you know, my mind is just blown.
Yeah,
you know, like really blown that you know, people have the minds and the bent to do these things. So I wanted to you know, see if I could push something out there of my own. Certainly not on that level, but
nice.
But I'm having a good time with it, so it's fun.
Do you influence your kids musically? If you
no,
does any of that? No.
Nope.
Yeah.
No. They don't like the stuff that I like.
Yeah.
But they love music. They listen to music all the time, but it tends to be music from video games.
Right. Yeah.
You know, Japanese Vocaloid music. I mean, really just
stuff. You know,
just deep, weird stuff.
No Slapshot in there.
No. You know, I don't play that stuff.
It,
you know, as far as and they don't know much about it.
Right.
You know, they go, "Oh, my dad was in a band and he was crazy in his youth." You know, so
yeah.
They do their own thing.
Nice.
They read their own stuff. You know, one of the things that we wanted to do was raise them to be independent.
Yeah.
So they're becoming two independent young ladies.
That's awesome. I'm sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out and doing this, man. This was
my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally got it together.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks, man.
Well, you keep it up,
yeah,
Chris, because we're having such a good time listening to all these. So,
thanks, man.
So I'm very appreciative of you for doing this.
Thanks. And and I do this with all the ones where people have come to this house to try to get people to come here. So would you approve of like people? It's pretty.
It's easy to find. Yeah. The atmosphere is great. You know, it's just like you're looking out on a beautiful lake and all that stuff. It's a great atmosphere. So A+.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Christian.